Cao Cao, the legendary hero of chaos. Nobunaga Oda, the Demon King. Their rivalry in the Warrior series is legendary. But who is the better warrior? For this particular analysis, I will be comparing both of Cao Cao and Nobunaga's weapons, skills, powers, X-Factor as displayed in Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, and come to a conclusion as to who is superior within these categories. Foregoing any historical references, we're only going to be looking at the canon versions of the characters as they appear in the Musou series. So no long-form discussion about Fury Mode or deification. Now let's analyze these characters and see who comes out the victor. When it comes to weapons, both of these men seem to have a very similar affinity for sabers. However, neither of their respective franchises make a big deal out of what type of sword they have. Cao Cao's 7-star sword seems to have a lot of lore significance, since it was given to him to specifically slay Dong Zhuo, but the games themselves provide very little information as to what exactly this sword does. And in the earlier Samurai Warriors games, Nobunaga does have access to a huge arsenal of legendary weapons, but they're all just extra unlockables, and the story doesn't seem to place a whole lot of importance on the type of weapon that Nobunaga uses. And since both weapons don't seem to enhance or inhibit any of their skills or powers, both combatants seem very evenly equipped on this front. This category still should be highlighted because there was stuff worth mentioning. Cao Cao is shown to be a very skilled swordsman, using a combination of fencing and wushu fighting techniques. He is often shown practicing his form, showing control, balance, and a sharp sixth sense. While fighting, he maintains a very strong stance and has exceptional footwork. There is no doubt that Cao Cao is a really good swordsman. Nobunaga wildly differs from Cao Cao, in that his attacks incorporate elements outside of fencing. As a swordsman, his skills seem to be on par with Cao Cao. However, he also utilizes punches and leaping techniques as a part of his repertoire of attacks. Both warriors are shown to be great swordsmen, but Cao Cao seems to have the advantage when it comes to proficiency and skill. And on paper, Cao Cao would be able to beat Nobunaga in a straightforward sword fight. On paper. Though Cao Cao may be a superior martial artist in terms of practice, he is rarely shown putting his skills to the test. Compare that to Nobunaga, who is not only shown fighting, but is often dominating his skirmishes. Nobunaga's skills may be unorthodox, but they are shown to work exceptionally well, while the best we see of Cao Cao is him just dominating jobbers. Cao Cao may have practice and talent on his side, but we have yet to see him make use of these skills in a way that proves him to be superior. Nobunaga, on the other hand, has a lot of noteworthy fights that puts his skill on full display, proving himself to be a fearsome adversary. Cao Cao having the talent and being well practiced at his craft is impressive, but it's nothing compared to the feats that Nobunaga has achieved, so Nobunaga gets double points in this regard. Cao Cao has been shown to have a lot of powers throughout the series, but two particular supernatural abilities stick out the most. The first one is cryomancy, the power to manipulate ice. He uses this power to conjure frozen spikes and create small blizzards to freeze multiple enemies in place. The other power he has is that he can create a shadow of himself to assist in his attacks. With proper mastery of these attributes, Cao Cao is capable of freezing and crossing up any opponent that comes his way. Though the shadow powers seem useful, Cao Cao has shown to have very little control over it, only able to send it out for singular purposes before it disappears, usually having it slash away at a predestined spot, which leaves him free to attack as he pleases, and the shadow does stay out for quite some time. It can also be placed in mid-air for aerial combos. While the clone runs interference in one direction, Cao Cao is free to engage enemies in another. A good strategy, but it doesn't seem to allow for a lot of creativity. Compared to other uses of Phantom Soldiers in the series, Cao Cao's shadow is a bit lacking. Perfectly functional, mind you, but we have seen better. And although the ice power powers are very powerful, they are usually tied to his Muso attacks, meaning it's somewhat of a trump card that he would pull out in a desperate situation, and not something that he would casually use. So if Cao Cao were to be facing a particularly difficult enemy, his last-ditch effort would be to use his Muso attacks to freeze his adversary and regroup. So while Cao Cao's supernatural abilities are incredibly useful, he doesn't seem to have much range in their application. Not terrible abilities, but compared to what we've seen throughout the series, they could be better. Nobunaga can create energy shields, enhance the strength of his weapons, levitate, shoot energy blasts, use telekinesis, create powerful shockwaves, create energy geysers. In stark contrast to Cao Cao, Nobunaga has a wider variety of supernatural powers that he can access in many ways. He can shoot balls of energy into the air and make them rain down. He can use the energy boost from his sword to make an even bigger geyser. He can not only protect himself from being staggered, but also deflect any oncoming strikes with his telekinesis. He is often shown levitating while performing some of his higher precision combos, and there doesn't seem to be a limit to how any of these feats are utilized. There are some limitations. Nobunaga's levitation is only ever shown to float him a few meters off the ground, so it's not to be confused with flight, and the standard aura around his sword isn't to be mistaken for his buff. The game makes it very clear it's something that he has to apply himself. But that's it really, his telekinesis basically makes him near untouchable. I mean, his class animation is him just pushing back his opponent with his TK powers. So Cao Cao has two very useful abilities, but Nobunaga easily outclasses him in this category. Holy shit, this is Sub-Zero versus Noob Saibot. We could end the discussion right there, but let's see if anything changes when analyzing their X factor. Certain characteristics about the warrior that sets them apart from others. In spite of his calm demeanor, Cao Cao is shown to be rather ruthless when it comes to combat. He has good fighter's instinct, which allows him to sense when enemies are afoot, and he of course can take out his fair share of enemy soldiers. That being said, he is rarely in a position where he is in direct confrontation with other warriors, and when those opportunities do arise, he is often saved by others or is forced to flee. This is shown in his many forced confrontations with Lu Bu, Guan Yu, Gan Ning, and Ma Chao. There are hardly any times when his skills are being put over other characters, and is usually protected by his entourage. And although he does have ice powers and doppelgangers, he never uses these abilities in tandem. He's also not very creative with how he uses the powers by themselves. It's often just a different form of shooting ice at the opponent or holding a clone in place to perform better combos. Cao Cao is a feared man of action, but that's rarely attributed to anything that he does physically. His opponents fear the power he wields, not the man himself, and there are many instances in which warriors think that they can take him. Nobunaga can keep his cool under pressure, staying calm when the odds are against him, even when his allies betray him. He is not a man of brash decision-making and keeps a level head during conflict. He is consistently shown throwing himself into the fray, often taking on enemies directly. He fought both of the Sonata brothers at the same time and is portrayed to have dominated the fight. The only person capable of doing significant damage to him in a fight was Mitsuhide, and the only reason that he lost was because the plot kinda demanded that he did. He is often thinking outside the box, enabling him to come up with tactics his enemies would have never thought of. Tactics that allowed him to defeat some of the most powerful warlords of the land. His fighting style also displays many different applications of his powers, showing more than one way to shoot an energy blast or create an energy geyser. The one drawback to Nobunaga's character is that he likes walking on that razor's edge. There are many situations where Nobunaga just allows people to get really close to taking his life, and if he wasn't wearing that thick plot armor, they probably would have succeeded. So in terms of X Factor, both warriors seem to have equal footing in these regards, but Nobunaga stands a little bit higher when it comes to his characteristics being applied to combat. Cao Cao isn't portrayed to be a fighter. He is a leader above all else, and is at his best when he is using his mind and resources to make a winning strategy. Though he is a force to be reckoned with, and is brave enough to risk his life to win a battle, the man himself is not a powerhouse, and it's fairly believable that a good majority of the cast can easily take him in a one-on-one fight. Nobunaga, on the other hand, while not a powerhouse, has been shown to be a master tactician and capable warrior. He has directly fought some very noteworthy characters and has put himself over in terms of power. Yukimura Sanada and Nobuyuki Sanada are some of the best fighters in the series, and even they had a tough time fighting him. It's really fun to compare these two characters for what they represent for their respective franchises. But when it comes to a straight one-on-one fight between these two warriors, Nobunaga comes out the victor. He has way more abilities than Cao Cao, he has limitless flexibilities with said powers, and has a good track record of wins. Cao Cao is powerful in his own way, but Nobunaga is powerful in many ways. And for those who are curious, yes, Fury Mode from Strike Force would significantly increase Cao Cao's odds of winning compared to Nobunaga's deification. On top of gaining the ability to fly, Cao Cao's strength, speed, and defense would have an extraordinary increase. But even with that boost, that still wouldn't be enough to beat Nobunaga's psychic powers. Physical attacks can still be blocked with no clear limit. Nobunaga can increase the strength and range of his attacks. He has many ways of shooting people out of the sky. Even without deification, Nobunaga would still have an overwhelming advantage. Any non-canon powers available to Cao Cao wouldn't be enough to beat Nobunaga at his base form. Nobunaga would still be the victor in the end. Now, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified for when I upload again. The YouTube algorithm demands it. Thank you, fellow warriors, for watching this video. Now be gone.